And we're back. We're back.
All right. So this is the PS5. This is a much, much smaller carburetor. This would be like the one that's actually on our Bonanza. So it's a normal size thing. It is a pressure carburetor that works similar but different. If you understood the other one, this one's real easy to understand. It's just different. The first thing that you have to understand is this poppet valve. It is weird. See this right here? That ain't the poppet. It's attached to it. Here's the poppet right here. When it moves to the right, it opens. And this is like some sort of stop that stops it or something. I don't know what it is, but you can actually see it on the poppet. When we have a cutaway, you can see it. So to the right is open and to the left is closed. Got that? Okay.
Same as the other one, right?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fuel. Let's see. Oops, there we go. Laser pointer. All right. So what are we going to do here?
We should have
Light.
Camera.
Then people can't see my beautiful face. All right. Fuel is going to come in through the fuel strainer for the fuel inlet. Where's my fuel inlet? Fuel pressure connections. That's out to fuel pressure. Poppet valve. Fuel inlet right here. Fuel comes up through here. Out there to the cockpit to tell how much fuel pressure it is. Got a strainer. Comes up in here. Here's the poppet valve. And there is no chamber. Well, there's A, B, C is up here, and D is here. What's wrong with C?
It's
Not connected to a diaphragm. So diaphragms are A, B, and D. Well, maybe we should talk about A and B because that's normal. So we have A right here. A is what? Impact air. Remember that? Nothing different. Impact air comes in here and moves the poppet to the right, which tends to open the poppet valve. So that moves it to the right, tends to open the poppet valve. Then we have chamber B, which is
that's metering fuel.
chamber B. I don't know, it doesn't connect right here, but we can just look at the color. Venturi suction magically comes right here. Bluetooth. Comes across over to here, into here. Chamber B is vacuum. Vacuum tends to move the poppet to the
Right.
Yeah, this one's a little weird in that.
Yeah, because I see that it. Never mind.
So if it draws it in, it's going to draw this one this way, but it's also got a diaphragm that way. It's going to kind of go that way. So I see it as kind of helping A and D the way it's drawn. And I'm sure it's right. But we could just look at A plus B equals air metering force. Good with that? We'll keep it simple. And then we could say that fuel comes in here. We could call this E if we wanted to, where it's purple. If I was smart, I would have made my colors match. Comes through the poppet right here. A and B tend to open or close the poppet. Open, because the more air we get, the more we want it to open. Fuel comes into D, and D is our fuel metering force, which tends to close the poppet. So tends to close the poppet. So we could say A plus B is air metering force, which should equal D. So if A and B equal D, then it is in equilibrium. And that's what we want, right? Because if we go back to the same theory that we had before, if we open the throttle, what happens to A?
Pressure goes up.
Pressure goes up. What happens to B?
Pressure goes up.
Yeah, vacuum goes up or pressure goes down if you want to look at it, but we increase the vacuum, we increase the pressure. That tends to open the poppet valve. The poppet valve is going to open until D equals A and B. At that point, the poppet will be in equilibrium and stop moving. If we close down A and B, the poppet is going to close, and it will keep closing until D decreases in pressure to equal A and B and stop and be in equilibrium. We good?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Check with it, buddy.
No.
Okay. Do you want to explain or do you want me to get someone else?
No. I'd like you to explain it.
All right. A and B is called what?
Air metering
Air metering force. D is my, yeah, at this point I just call D is fuel metering force. It's just D. All right, so A and B tend to
Open the poppet.
open the poppet. D tends to
Close.
close the poppet. So if I'm flying along at 50% power and I want to go up to 60%, so I open the throttle a little bit more than what it is, the pressure in A goes up, the vacuum in B goes up, pressure moves it to the right, the suction moves it to the right. That means that the poppet is going to open a little bit, and the pressure in D is going to increase until such time that it equals what happened in A and B. I mean, we could get all weird about, well, A is a positive and B is a negative, and I don't want to do that. I think this is easier to understand. Yeah, it's air metering force. So when fuel metering force equals the air metering force, the poppet's in equilibrium and it stops moving. All right, so we have this pressure in D is going to go across a main metering jet. Is that big enough or should
No,
I?
can you make it a little bit bigger, please?
Yeah, sure. That's just real easy to do. Right in the middle of a presentation. Let's see. Where was I? It was right here. Let's see if I move this up here. Move this like that. That's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. So,
Maybe you do.
main metering jet. Main metering jet. What's C now? We can look down here. Metered fuel pressure. Okay, so now we have metered fuel pressure. I like to think of this like I did before as sort of a fixed pressure. Yeah.
What's that thing on top of C?
Right there?
Yeah.
The cap.
Oh.
Sometimes they draw things that are like, wow, you really went into great detail for that. But, remember, they got to drill the hole somehow, so that's how they drilled it. Okay, so let's see. So what if we thought of C as also being 5? Now I'm just making up a number, but it was a constant. So it's going to come across the carburetor to this side. This is where things get a little more crazy. This is a... I have a better picture. There's two different types of these rods right here. You can see it's called the idle needle valve. And if we take a look at a different, there we go, the idle needle valve. Some of them are stepped, some of them are not. Depends on the model of it. But what you have is, remember how it doesn't work real well at idle? We have the same problem. And remember before we had the mechanical sliding thing?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what this is to this one. So you have this step needle. So you can see right here, just right here is going to be your idle area. So that it blocks off most of the opening. And then as you advance the throttle, this is going to be the opening, and then you advance it more. This is the opening, and then over here it's like fully open. Let me go back and look at it. So that's right here. So when the throttle is in idle, it's going to block off a lot of this right here. Okay. Then as I advance the throttle, it's going to pull this pin out more and more and more until fuel, it's coming in this way, it's just allowed to go and dump through there and out. Even though it kind of doesn't look like it's like, how does it get past there? I don't know. That's how they drew it. So gets through there or right here and then out. Okay, it gets a little more complicated in that it has some assist stuff. So here's the throttle lever right there that moves it, but it's also got some springs involved that kind of, so it's not exactly linked. But the springs assist the diaphragm. So the pressure over here is also going to help open it along with the spring pressure. You're just going to have to, I don't want to get too far off in the weeds on this because we're not trying to design it. But the more I open the throttle, the more it's going to relieve the spring pressure, use the spring pressure to pull it open. The more pressure is going to come here, act on the diaphragm to assist it in opening. So you're fine if you just go, okay, move the throttle towards open, fuel pressure comes in, assists, opens this up, and boom, we get more fuel as we go. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So that goes right up. We can skip this for now. It's going to come right up to here. We have the discharge needle. Discharge needle is going to do somewhat of the same stuff. We have a diaphragm, which is connected to Venturi plus meter fuel pressure. So you can see this is an adjustment right here. So we can adjust this pin right here to how much fuel we're going to get out the discharge nozzle. So as fuel pressure increases, well, we can say this, as we open the throttle and vacuum increases, it will open this up. Vacuum acts on this, fighting against the spring, and the fuel pressure here will assist and move this needle open more to go into the discharge nozzle. With this discharge nozzle, what are we getting here? Air bleed. So that one's going to get air bleed to it. All right, so if we back up a little bit, take a look at it again. Metered fuel pressure comes across here. Metered fuel pressure plus Venturi will assist in opening this needle. That allows more fuel to flow. And remember, the needle is stepped. Okay, so that gives us our idle control until the diaphragms take over. Flows up the discharge nozzle, pressure plus vacuum again, assist in opening this. Pop it to allow more fuel to go out. And there we are. Okay? Got it? We're doing good? Okay. Has an accelerator pump. So what happens, we have fuel pressure here and fuel pressure here. So under normal circumstances, I'm sorry, that's air pressure.
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, say should we go idle?
Sure.
Fuel's going to come up through here. There's a check valve right here. There has to be another little hole here. It's not showing. Check valve here. It's going to fill up this chamber right here. So fuel's just going to sit there. And there's a little spring that wants to push on the diaphragm, but it's not quite enough to do anything. So fuel sits in there, but when this opens up, whoosh, what happens to this air right here?
Pressure goes up.
Pressure goes up. Well, right now when it's closed, we could back up. When it's closed, what kind of pressure do I have up here?
Less than ambient.
Yeah, it's kind of a vacuum, so that will suck this against the spring, opening this up, opening this chamber and filling this chamber full of fuel. Open this up, what happens to the pressure here?
Increase.
Okay, it goes from vacuum to increases. When it increases, it's not enough to hold the spring this way anymore, so it releases the spring, or you can say that it helps push the spring. That fuel then gets injected into this line right here, which is more than was being allowed through the metering jet and here, because it just bypassed those. So quick dump of fuel in this line means more fuel right here, which means that will open up a little bit more, which means more fuel will go out for just a brief moment in time. Follow? Okay. So vacuum brings that back in. What's the word you wanted to use yesterday?
Me?
Yeah? No?
Me?
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't remember what I said.
Oh, okay. It just tends to pull it open. This feels full of fuel. Open the throttle. We lose the vacuum, cause a pressure. With spring assist, pushes this fuel out through this poppet valve right here, into this area, and up into here, pushing on this, opening this, more fuel out. This equalizes, and now we're just back to using our regular scheduled. You figured it out. All right, we good with that?
I have one question.
Yes.
Chamber B.
Bravo.
So if you have the Venturi reducing its pressure, wouldn't it equalize out between the two diaphragms pulling inwards?
Yeah, wouldn't it suck them both in?
Yeah. So, okay.
They're different sizes, so it will have a different effect on each. If they were the same size, it would block, it would cancel each other out, but they're different sizes.
Both fixed to the shaft, so they can't really compress the shaft in that direction. Right?
They do look like they're fixed to the shaft completely. I don't totally know. Explain what I can. It would be much more easy for me to explain if B had no effect on D. But perhaps it's because of the pressure. Like this is quite a bit of pressure. So compared to this, it may not really assist it at all. It would assist more with A because that's a lower pressure. I don't know. You have an answer. All right. Idle. Does this work in idle? No, it does not. You should be just like, no, of course it doesn't work. I mean, it works, but air pressure is too low for it to work in idle. So how does it work? It has a idle spring. Does it say idle spring anywhere? Doesn't, but that's what this is right here. So in chamber A, we've got an idle spring, which pushes the poppet to the right and keeps it open. And so keeps it open until such time that we have enough pressure at A and B to make those effective. We get air metering force and it works. But how do you shut it down, and where is our mixture control? All right, so if we look right here, we have the manual mixture control needle valve. That connects the A and the B. If I equalize A and B, or get them closer together, what does that do to air metering force?
Reduces it.
Reduces it. Therefore, it's going to go, carburetor goes leaner. If I increase the pressure, the carburetor goes richer. So if all I want to do is lean it, I pull this back a little bit, create a little bleed there, and now pressure at A goes down, closing the poppet a little bit, making the whole thing go leaner. That's all there is to it. All right, if you want to shut this down, then you pull back on the mixture. It pulls this all the way back until this ramp hits this right here. And this took me a while to figure this one out. This rocks forward. This right here is not a pivot point. It is literally the end of the spring coiled over. It makes it look like a pivot point, and you go, well, okay, I don't know, get out. It's not a pivot point. The whole thing pivots right here. This is a pivot.
Back to the bottom. The needle valve, it goes all the way back.
Yes.
How does it?
How does it help?
No, like,
How does it go back?
yeah.
It's connected to the
you said
red
it goes
knob.
back and it goes past the level.
It's connected to the red knob in the cockpit.
Yeah, but I'm there.
It just doesn't show it connected. It's like on the other side or something. It's
Bluetooth.
Yeah, the rod pulls.
so you physically pull this rod back.
No,
I don't-
didn't ask you later.
Okay, there, you can't see the connection to the red knob right here,
Yeah.
but it's on this.
Well, I know that
It's-
it's connected to the red knob.
Okay.
I'm stating like, I'll just ask you later.
Okay, can't wait. So this gets pulled back all the way, opening this passage cup completely. So what happens to air metering force?
Equalize.
It pretty much kills it off.
Yeah.
So no air metering force, but we still have a spring. So who cares about air metering force? Did air metering force work at idle anyway? No. So that didn't help us out. But the spring's holding the poppet open, so you're still going to get fuel. But you keep pulling it out. This ramp hits this, pushes down, this pushes up, this plunger pushes on this and pushes this little black dot right up into here. Pivot's right there, so what does that do to the spring if I grab this and stick it up over here? It is going to compress the spring, doing what to the poppet?
More, yeah.
Sucking the poppet all the way in. How much fuel gets through the poppet now? None. So there you go. So it closes it off. And that's how that works. Okay, there is one more element that I don't really get into a great deal because it can get real confusing very fast. Let me see. And I took it out apparently. No, right here.
It was so confusing.
That's why I left this in here. Within these pressure carburetors, you actually have some crazy things that you get to select as a pilot. So instead of just having a red knob, you have the manual mixture control valve plate positions. You have idle cutoff, which we know will cut it off. Actually, which carburetor is this? It doesn't even say. Chamber E. This looks like the PR58 actually, right? Because we got E here, A, B, C, D. So this would be the 58. Okay, so back to the 58. Within the carburetor, you have these positions: idle cutoff, auto lean, auto rich, and full rich. So it's in a separate section connected to the manual mixture control. So the drawing we looked at was overly simplified with just a rod that went up and down and changed it. But as the pilot, they have these options to choose these settings. So within it, you're going to have, I don't even know if they're going to show it, auto lean metering jet, regulator. There's got to be a bellows. I was going to say Android, but that's not the word. Android, a bellows that is going to sense atmospheric pressure. And so along with that, and these discs, which I like to think about similar to the Stromberg. Okay, so we can see we have channel. Let's see, auto rich. Looks pretty much the same. Auto lean, we've lost some channels, and idle cutoff, we've lost more. So full rich. So you get to select what you want as a pilot. Hey, I want it to be automatic, but I want to be on the lean. Or I want to be automatic, but I want to be rich. So you have these settings in there. Like I said, I don't get too much into those. But more than anything, it can get confusing. And what I'm really after on this is, can you explain just how fluid goes through something? Because you're going to do so much of this in second year that you have to be able to look at something like this and dissect it and go, okay, I can see how it flows, I can see what it does. So once you can start doing this, then everything becomes real simple for you. And there's really not much stopping you with aircraft. I mean, once you can understand this kind of stuff, then you can apply it to hydraulic systems, pneumatic systems, fuel systems. It just doesn't matter because they all do kind of similar stuff. It's all right. Questions? All right. So you want to test on Monday?
No. Tuesday.
We need a test review day.
Okay. So we're on Monday. We're just going to go back through this again. We'll look at some of these. Right. This is.
Read us the test questions.
Yeah.
Type stuff. Yeah.
It's just going in a little more detail in some of these items. You good?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right.